Imagine going to a World Economic Forum party. What did those freaks do when all the listening devices have been scanned out of the room? All their phones have been put into bags and locked away in a lead vault? What do those freaks do? Because you know it's not normal shit. You know everybody's buttoned down like that and wants to control the world. There's something involved that's outlandish that they keep a secret. That's always been the case with secret societies. I mean, that's the whole eyes wide shut thing. That there's some freak shit going on behind the scenes to anybody that really wants to control everything. You don't just want to control everything. You want to control everything so you can get away with some freak shit too.
Right, I'm saying, but these Epstein-like characters have existed throughout history, whether they were kings or what, human beings are human beings universally. So everybody is a supplier. Epstein, Weinstein, like these guys knew what these extremists liked and provided it, and provided the way for you to to have $1 billion and not create a fantasy island type environment has not existed throughout history.
Right. Right.
Right.
And there's always been those people can only kind of interact with those kind of people. When you reach that certain level of wealth and global success, like you're a Bill Gates type guy, how many guys can Bill Gates hang out with? Bill Gates can't just go bowl and join the bowling team and make friends with the other bowlers. It's too weird. He's got to hang out with his kind. And the more you do that, the less you are in touch with what makes sense to say. And that's when you see them saying the most outlandish shit, because they don't recognize how regular people are going to react to what the fuck you're saying. You know what? We're going to own nothing and be happy? What the fuck did you just say? Did you say I'm going to own nothing and be happy? But there's things. So who owns the things? And who enforces who owns the things? And how do you do that? When you take away everybody's weapons, you're the only one that has weapons, and you get to decide who owns the things. And no one owns the things, and everyone's happy. Okay.
Right, but part of what you're trying to do is you're trying to come up with something that allows you to have the power while also profiting simultaneously.
Right.
Right, so if it's modern religion, let's say, so in the teaching of Jesus' time, right, when they said pay the tithes, right, it was you had your whole farming plot, let's say it was 40 acres and you had corn planted there, right? You would when it came time to harvest, you would harvest everything except the rows that were on the fence, right? And the rows that were on the fence, that was the 10% of your field that would go to people that didn't have it. So it wasn't just you giving the 10%. It was also the fact that human nature is, if you were going to give people some of your crops, you going to pick out the best crops for you and your family, and then you'll put another pile for the giveaway. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And this took care of that, where it was all equal, and the person that didn't have to feel like they was a beggar. They could come and pick and see which corn they liked and get. You see what I'm saying?
Well, that's a smart move just for harmony in the community too. Then people have a vested interest in this farmer being successful with his crop.
Right.
Some of that crop is yours.
But the decision to take it from that to God said, give me 10% in this plate, is going to make $1 billion a day for 1 billion people.
Yeah.
This is why Tesla has to go. Why? Because not what Tesla is saying about electricity. It's the fact that he's saying this should be free for everybody,
right,
everywhere.
Yeah, he wanted to have aerial electricity free for everybody, like radio waves.
And the day that you say that,
That's a wrap.
It's cheaper to keep her because we make 200 billion a day.
Yeah.
And we all agree universally you should pay for this, and we'll be in charge of selling it to you.
And we'll shut it off if you fuck around.
So for us to say, I think they're going to do that with cars.
Duh.
This is how this goes in these
100%.
processes.
Yeah, that's the conspiracy theorist's biggest fear about electric cars. But it's not just electric cars. We found out it's an OnStar. It's on, I have a Cadillac Escalade. That has an OnStar. If I'm driving, the government wants to stop me, they can just shut my car off. It's crazy.
And if you were in that business, what would you tell them they need to do in the next 5 years?
Yeah, make them all like
get
that.
better at it?
Yeah, get better at that. Control where they go, control the steering wheel, control everything. I want you to auto driving on all cars. Auto driving on all cars with third-party input.
Is this not what we would say to Tesla?
Yeah.
I mean, to Elon, if he said, I want to make cars.
Right.
When we say, okay, well, these are the regulations, and you have to make them like this, and you...
It'd be nice if you could just control that car. Here, this is how you sell it to people. If someone steals your car, we can get it back. And you go, oh, that's great. If someone steals my car, they can get it back. How are they going to get it back? Well, they control your car.
You can make it cheap enough to not be a difficult sale, though, Joe.
Yeah, make it cheap.
That's what capitalism is about.
Yeah. Well, that's also like when you get free internet or free services through Google, right? Mm-hmm. It's free. But what you're giving up is your data, which is extremely valuable. So they're giving you something. You can now use Google, but now they have all your data, and they're just a big net that mines data. And because of that, they become one of the most powerful entities that's ever existed on Earth. There was a story that
we learned this from fishermen,
yeah,
how a net works and how much it's important to get as much in as you possibly can, and that's where analytics live. And that's where I'm saying this is where the DNA industry is built off of, is the fact of the future. Like at that same point that you're saying that we'll have those cars that do that, they'll be able to predict crime.
Oh yeah.
And step in before certain things even need to happen.
Or they'll probably instigate you to a certain level of stress that they could indicate that you're about to commit crime, and then they come in and get you.
They won't need to be that nefarious, only because
how much, Joe, have you looked at Larry Fink, Soros, State Street, Vanguard, BlackRock? How much have you looked at what they're doing and what their ties are?
I've looked at it.
Yeah, they're pretty much running everything. 88% of the companies on S&P 500, the largest shareholder of those companies is either State Street, BlackRock, or Vanguard. 88% of them. And then you see their influence in defense contracts. So we went through a deal. I'm like, let me see if these guys, this ESG, Larry Fink, Vanguard, State Street, if they have any influence on military contract, defense contracts. If you Google the largest shareholder for Raytheon, 3 out of the 4 top shareholders of Raytheon, BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard. It could be top 3 with Raytheon, but I think it's 3 out of 4. If you go look up General Dynamics, if you go look up Boeing, if you go look up, Northrop Grumman, and then you work backwards and you say, okay, how much money is that in what these guys are doing? You'll find the amount of money we spent in our military, $744 billion on how much we're making from defense, but you'll see some numbers saying last year it's 13% of our GDP, which is around $850 billion. That's more than the next 10 combined. We gave more money to Ukraine than Russia spent on their military last year. And when you look at these contracts, then you're like, okay, Fink is there, these guys are there. Okay, let's go look at Hollywood. Same thing you see there. Let's go look at pharmaceutical. Let's go look at this. And you're like, wait a minute. These guys essentially have a monopoly. Well, how big is BlackRock? $10 trillion. How big is $10 trillion? Only 2 countries have a bigger GDP than what BlackRock has, assets under management, U.S. and China. That's how big BlackRock is. So then they went and they started getting all these other guys to sign on and say, hey, we want you to participate with the same thing as well with ESG. And they ended up having, I think they had 31 signers. I think end of 2022, they got 60 something signers for a total of $70 trillion of assets under management. So now they're controlling other places. And just recently, if you saw the rebuilding of Ukraine, did you see this contract? Rebuilding of Ukraine, $400 billion contract. BlackRock and Chase is helping rebuild Ukraine. They have that much control to get everybody to do what they want them to do. And then you go even deeper, which is even the crazier part with, the schools, like, the biggest union we have in America. I think it's National Education something. NEA is the largest union we have. 3 million teachers are part of that union. And you look at that and you go deeper in that with open society and who's funding it, who's the money behind these organizations. Comes back, Soros. How do you feel about the kind of power they have right now to fight against them? Because this isn't like a billionaire can come out and say, I'm going to go up against these guys. They don't have a little bit of money. A billionaire to these guys is nothing. They got the kind of control that can make companies fire boards, they can replace CEOs, they can replace leaders if they don't like. They have their hands so much into it where many times when people say the people of power, I'm kind of like, who are the people of power? Are you convinced these guys are really running the world, or what do you think about what some of these bigger companies are doing, like State Street, Vanguard, and BlackRock?
Well, they certainly have massive amounts of influence. What do you think they're doing?
It's the question is, how do you fight it? Like, for example, the way we fight mainstream is by what? The show that we do. And we have to be patient. It's going to take 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 20 years. Now you have some influence, right? Okay, we can fight. There is an actual strategy on how to fight that. When you have this much, Joe, 88% of S&P 500 companies, that is a form of a monopoly. Our monopoly law in America is 50%. They say 50%. Like if you tie and said, at what point is it 50%? I've done calls with the FTC, but they say 50% is a monopoly law. Do you know how many people in America have an iPhone versus Droid? You know what the numbers, market shares in America with iPhones?
I think it's like 60.
58%, 60%. Yeah. That is already a monopoly. But who's knocking on the door of Apple? Tim Cook saying, hey, Tim, you got 58%. That's breaking a monopoly law. So if a president got up and said, if I'm going to be the president, here's what we're going to be doing. We have to look at all the contract. You can't overcharge us. We have to open it up. You have to sell some of your companies. You have to let them be independent again. Whatever way you got to break them apart to have competition again, because we don't have that today. We say we have a commander-in-chief, but really the commander-in-chief is Larry Fink. The guy running BlackRock is really the president of the United States, if we look at the kind of influence he's got in every industry, Joe. And he's like, well, I kind of feel bad. I'm ashamed that all the weaponization, the word, ESG is being used and all this other stuff. And Elon tweeted about the ESG. I don't know if you remember when Elon tweeted about ESG, saying the S in ESG is satanic. This is a part where even a Charlie Munger, who is Warren Buffett's partner, says, look, I love Larry Fink, but I'm not interested in having an emperor. Some words like that he said about Larry Fink. And by the way, Larry Fink is an interesting guy because he majored in college political science. His aspirations was politics. He accidentally got into money and he learned a trade, and then he lost $100 million at 36 years old, I think. And then he teams up with Schwartzman and they start this company. And after a couple years, they got $5 billion under management, $8 billion and $32 billion. I'm extremely concerned about what these guys are up to. We think our president is the most powerful person. That person's not, because behind closed doors, they're going to be like, look, guys, let's relax. That guy's only going to be there for 4 to 8 years. We're going to be all right. But now we're running the world. We control all the ETFs in America. We're controlling all this stuff. Everyone has to come through us, and we can tell everybody what to do because everybody fears not getting money from us, from being downgraded. A Tesla on ESG score is nothing, but a Philip Morris gets an A rating. How the hell the company that's Philip Morris has a better environmental social governance score, DEI, not DEI, but the CI, they can bully some of these guys.
Now, let me ask you this. What do you think the goal of ESG is? Why do you think they're establishing these sort of parameters? Like, why is ESG a thing, and what's the benefit of it for them?
So Schultz said something very interesting. Schultz says, look, these guys are driven by money. They're not going to do anything to destroy an economy to lose their own money, because they want that. I said, okay, it's a very good, Andrew Schultz. I said, that's a very good point. You know how sometimes Michael Jackson, you see the interview with him with kids. Oh, they're just sleeping in the bed. That's all it is. And we're just having a great time and we're storytelling. And you're like, yeah, bro, I get it. It's a little weird. You got a 7, 8-year-old, 10-year-old kid sleeping in your bed and, all this stuff. And I'm just, it's a little bit fishy what you're talking about here. It's not normal. Well, if you're in Hollywood and you've slept with as many people as these people sleep, and then eventually you have to have other options, because what else do you do? You have to try new things. How many threesomes have you had? how many this, how many that. So you start trying all these other things, and sometimes these guys go to such and such place. Why are these guys doing what they're doing? You have all the money in the world. You live in $100 million house. You got nice cars. You go to all the nice restaurants. You meet prime ministers. You meet presidents. And then maybe there comes a time when you're looking at a couple of these guys, they're presidents and prime ministers, and you tell yourself, I'd be a better president than you, bro. How the hell am I not reading the country? Or they tell themselves, you think you're a president? You're not a president. You work for me. So the motive becomes control more than money. After you have all the money in the world, what's next? It's got to be control or a true vision.